All right, guys. So we got another episode with Success Leaves Clues. We got Carl, the infamous Carl, doing great things. And we have a mutual friend, Michael Fisher, here. We randomly both know Michael, which is funny. You guys know I've known Carl since middle school at least. Maybe cross paths in Little League before that. And then we got Michael. So Michael, why don't we start? Just kind of give us a little bit of your background, a little bit about the family, how you know Carl briefly, how you know me, and then we'll dive into some of your mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Somerset County, Bridgewater area. Was here all the way up through 8th grade. My dad worked in big pharma, so I moved out to Pennsylvania for literally 4 of my high school years, and then came right back to New Jersey, which I consider Somerset County my home. Ended up buying a house. My wife Melissa and I decided to, when we were living in New York at the time, where do you want to live? And she goes, Hillsboro's a nice town. My dad used to work in Princeton, and we almost built a house there. And I was like, okay, fair enough. I had been shopping at that Hillsboro ShopRite since I was like 4 years old. My parents, we drove out. That was the only ShopRite in town. Yeah. So I knew Hillsboro really well. And we made this our home. We raised our daughter here until she was 5 years old. And then we recently, followed Mr. Carl here down to Monmouth County. But yeah, I kind of an interesting background. I graduated college. I got a scholarship to St. Joe's in Philly for food marketing. I've always been into cooking, into food, all that kind of stuff, and ended up not really being ready for college, I don't think. Dropped out, decided to pursue playing in my rock band Dexterity with all of my best friends, my childhood friends that I knew since I was 5 or 6 years old. But got to the point we were getting close to maybe getting a record deal and all this stuff, but it was just not in alignment with kind of what I wanted in my life. I always wanted to be a husband and a father, and it was something for me that I just didn't really fit with it. And it's funny, right around that same time, my father passed away very, very suddenly, and it was just a weird. It was almost like that. I look at that as like the start to the rest of my life in a weird way. And I started working at a bank. I was working 6 days a week. Went back to school full time. So I was working 50 hours a week, going to school full time. Ended up graduating with honors at nighttime from Fairleigh Dickinson University with an international business degree, and just finally kind of just got myself together. I met a psychologist here in Hillsboro named Dr. Bernie Balicki. He came into my branch over here at the Hillsboro branch of Fulton in the corner of the shopping center. He came in, and this guy, no offense, Dr. Balicki, if you hear this, he looks like a wizard, right? He looks like the kind of guy you put like a hat, like the Sorcerer's Apprentice kind of guy.
Now you're talking Kyle's language.
Yeah, right? So, when people walk into the bank, you never know who's going to walk in, right? So I just went up to this guy and said, hey, I'm Michael Fisher. I said, how can I help you with anything? And he says, well, I'm a life coach. And I was like, a life coach? That sounds awesome. Well, tell me more about it. Well, turns out they actually accept your insurance. They accepted my insurance. It cost me $25 a week to go see this guy. And he started helping me with these building blocks of growth and foundation for me that I've taken now. And it's, right after my dad died, it was just all of these weird things happened, right? I meet Dr. Balicki, I hire a life coach, and I just start making these changes. And, I started off as a teller at a bank and, worked my way up to a pretty high level, senior level C&I commercial banker, and now I'm a managing director of a bespoke investment bank in Manhattan. Like, I've been a janitor, I've rebuilt car alternators. I've literally done everything, and for some reason I am here where I am today because of just great mindset and just putting the work in. So that's.
So with this guy, Balicki. So he was working at the bank, or he just happened to be?
He just was going in to make a deposit, right? It was just by happenstance that I met him.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you still use his principles?
Yeah, a lot of the principles, for me, and I think you and I have talked about this before. We have a shared love of fitness. For me, I was just always so insecure with the way I looked. My man boobs and my belly and this and that. Kyle, when I tell you in my book, I'm writing my book now, that you see this, you'll read this book, and I'm going to get really vulnerable with it. Like, I did some weird shit to try to hide my body because I was so ashamed of the way that I looked. And it was just not having that belief in myself. So, something as simple as, positive self-talk, right? Like, that's something that's huge. Like, how does the voice in your head talk to you, right? Is it like, oh, you piece of shit. Like, what are you doing? You have no business doing this. To now all of a sudden be like, well, damn it. I am a managing director of a boutique investment bank, right? Like, I am that guy. Like, I am being asked to come speak on a podcast on mindset, right? I am that guy. You need to have that. Like, that was one of the key things that he taught me. And again, it was, positive self-talk. It was working on my fitness, right? Making that a priority in my life. Like, little things like that. And then the third principle that sticks to me to this day is just presence. Right, is really being present in every moment and really savoring each and every moment and absorbing these things and looking for these, cool opportunities by happenstance, that happen. You asked me how we met. Carl and I met because somebody at the bank that I worked for at one time ended up messing up on one of his deals, and I happened to be the guy that they called
the fixer.
The fixer. I was the guy that came in, calmed down the situation. I was always a little different than the other people that I worked with, right? Because I was a worker, doer, closer. Like, I was just always, like I always say, teach me the rules of the game. I'll learn them quickly, and then I'm going to be the winner. Like, that's just the way that I operate my life. And the people in the bank saw that, and when there was a problem, that's when they sent me in. And then, you and I just was researching fasting, and then came up with, came across the Panda Diet book, and then realized quickly the 6 degrees of separation and all these different weird things, like how, my best friend's sister-in-law worked out at Newell Strength, and just we had all these similar, connections. And then super weird, a couple months ago, I took a screenshot of Carl and Kyle, and I was like, these are both guys that I like, know, trust, and respect. They got a podcast together, and I'm like, Kyle, how do you know Carl? Like, this is crazy. And then here we are, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It just shows you how small of a world it is, because when we did post our first podcast, I had people reach out like, oh, how do you know Kyle? And I was more like, wait, no, how do you know Kyle? No, well, I really don't. They're like, oh, I'm on Instagram or whatever else. I was, Kyle and I have been long friends, and we always reconnect.
Yeah. And
we've been talking about doing this for years, and I always say Kyle was pushing me to do the podcast, and I was like, well, it'd be better for me to do it, so we got to do it. Yeah. And it's been awesome. So it's been such a small world, and I did get to work with Mike on a couple transactions, and it was a night and day difference. And you could just tell. I always say in a business, it's all about what kind of experience are you providing your consumer. And my experience got elevated tenfold working with Mike compared to some other people in the bank.
Yeah.
And just hearing about some of the challenges you went through to overcome is really inspiring.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, listen, it's great to be with you guys. I mean, Kyle and I have spoken about this at nauseum, but it's really hard these days to find guys that are in our age group. We're all right around the same age, 42, 43 years old, that are out there getting after it, that have the same kind of values that we do. And I know you're a father. I know you're a big-time father, big-time husband. I know you're a big-time father, big-time husband. Like, we all have our priorities in the right places, but we also are out there. We love the grind, we love the hustle, and we love to win. So it's really cool to be with you both here today.
Yeah, it's really good, man. Talk about, did you remind me what sports you played growing up?
So I always, I'll give you the caveat. My wife loves this about me. I do not watch sports. So if you want to go to a game, I'll be happy to go up and get the hot dogs or beers for people. I like to play sports, but at the end of the day, physique-wise, I just like to look good with my shirt off. That's truth be told. But growing up playing sports, I did all the basics, right? So, t-ball, baseball, I played, pretty competitively. I did a lot of golf. And then in New Jersey, I played a lot of lacrosse, all the way up and through 8th grade. And then I went out to a private Catholic school in Pennsylvania, and they said, yeah, lacrosse is a girls' sport, and like that's like Bridgewater is
Big
like,
on
that's like
lacrosse.
holy
Right,
ground
right.
Of lacrosse. So that was a sport that I really got into, and I found my love of it. Yeah, outside of that, those were pretty much the big ones for me.
And then so it's kind of tying the athletic background, I always like to know that with your rise in the banking industry and you're getting in shape, right, overcoming that insecurity, which one came first? Like climbing up the success ladder in the bank and moving to where you're at, or was it, you said you had all these insecurities with your physique and whatnot. Did you start, which one was first?
No, I think they kind of went in tandem,
Same
right?
thing,
So
yeah.
it's like the more I poured into the things that helped me, the more success I had, right? And I think my physique was one of those things. And it's funny now because, listen, this is not me flexing, boasting, bragging, whatever it is, but I still have that imposter syndrome when I walk into a room and people go, oh man, like, yeah, look at this guy's making us look bad. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, because I still feel like the guy that's, wearing 3 shirts to cover up my belly. I still don't feel like that. But for me, I think, when I really started focusing on those key principles that I learned from Dr. Balicki, and one of them was, hey, you got to move your body every day. And I call it paying the man. Like, I'm so grateful for this great, life that I have, that I feel like that's the least I can do is really honor and respect my body.
Yeah, right on. Do you get that, the imposter syndrome?
I get it every day.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing to get.
Yeah.
I think when you're pushing yourself and you want to grow, and you put yourself in rooms with people where you want to get, that you sometimes feel like it's the imposter syndrome. And I always say, a lot of people be like, oh, Carl, look at everything you've done. And my natural personality is like, yeah, but I haven't done X, Y, Z. That it does make me feel like an imposter. And I think that's just I think some of that's kind of healthy for driven people. What about you?
Oh,
Do you ever get
all
it?
the time. I always say, I don't know why anybody listens to anything I say with fitness and health, because I feel, it's the imposter and it's the beginner's mindset. I still feel like I'm a novice in so many areas, marketing, all this stuff, man. I'm like,
I think that's a sign of someone who's talented, because that imposter syndrome is them saying, yeah, I've come this far, but I still have this much further to go. And when you surround yourself with people who are at that level you want to get, you're always going to feel a little, I don't know if insecure is the right word, but you're going to feel a little way because you're around those type of people. And that's why I think it's important to keep yourself around those type of people, to keep you driven.
Absolutely.
definitely.
Well, I always say, like, when I first met Kyle, even the first time I met you, I mean, you guys are so well respected in your industry. I mean, like, you're an industry leader in that, residential real estate space. Like, you're one of those heavy hitters. You ask anybody, you're on the list. And you're the same way. And like the first time I met you guys, I was nervous. And it's like, once I got to know you, it's like, well, why was I ever nervous in the first place, right? But I think the thing that I respect the most about, Carl and I have worked on very transactional, banker client basis. And, now we're developing that friendship more, especially now that we live in the same county. I'm going to be, I know I have a couch to sleep
Go
on
over to
now,
Trump
but
with him.
yeah, we're going to go to Trump and hang out. But, with Kyle, it's the one thing that I respect the most about Kyle is that he is still so humble, and he realizes that he is not an expert on all things. And there's so much more that he can learn, right? And that's exactly what we're all saying right now, right? And that makes me more attracted to being around people like that are like, they don't feel like they're the expert, right? So I think there's a really healthy amount of that imposter syndrome. I think it's important to have that, right? Because we haven't learned everything that we need to learn,
Yeah.
So I got to ask a question, because I feel like it's important for someone that's listening to this who might be a business owner, not so much mindset, but talk a little bit about your experience in banking and what you're doing now. Talk a little bit about how important the velocity of money is for an entrepreneur with trying to scale your business, or someone they want to expand, but they might not know how. And there's a lot of things out there. I think a lot of entrepreneurs really don't financially know how to help grow their business, how to leverage. And I know, dealing with you in some transactions, you opened up my eyes to some things that other people in the bank didn't tell me, which I wish they did sooner. But talk a little bit about how important that velocity of money and cash flow is for people in business, whether they're starting out or as they're trying to grow and expand.
Yeah, I mean, I think it come down to this. Kyle and I were talking about this a little bit before. A spoiler alert for probably some of the listeners here, something that we're going to collaborate on and definitely get Carl involved in. But as a business owner, the most important thing you can do is really assemble your allies, right? And the key people that you need there are going to be everything from your banker to your financial advisor to your accountant to your lawyer. This circle of allies, I say assemble your allies, the people that you can trust. The biggest thing that I've heard from banking clients over the years is that my banker is just out of touch. You probably heard the expression. I mean, we're a little too young for this, but bankers hours. It used to be at like 2 o'clock on a Friday. There'd be scotches poured. People were smoking cigarettes in the office and doing that. Right? Couldn't get my banker on the phone because they're off at the golf course.
Right.
And that's the one thing that I've realized is the most important thing to my clients is just being super accessible to them and being knowledgeable to them enough to be able to help them with these things and say like, hey, we talked about like the amount of money that you keep in a bank, right? Like what is the big drivers for a bank to be able to be more conducive to what you want to do and the type of lending that you need, right? It's like, what is their thing that they really want the most of, right? So that you can achieve that. With my progression in my career, I started in this business, speaking completely freely. First, I was working at the bank. I said, who made the most money at the bank? And they go, well, the CEO makes the most money. Next in line would be commercial bankers. And I said, okay, I'm going to be that commercial banker. I'm going to be a commercial banker then. That works for me. That was my initial start. So selfishly, it was just to make more money. But then what it came to me, what I realized quickly was I could be a helpful resource to business owners that, a lot of business owners out there, are great at making widgets, or they're great at selling houses, or they're great at running gyms or retirement facilities or whatever it is that people do. But they might not understand the mechanics of like how the banking side is going to fit into it, which, as we all know, is a huge part of this business. And I think where I realized that more than ever was during COVID, right? Because there were so many people out there that were like, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, like there was a point in my life where I was like, okay, like, is the world going to end? Like, what's going to happen? And the only thing that I focused on because I had first joined the bank, my daughter was just born. I'm like, what am I going to do? All I did was I just picked up the phone and called people and say, hey, what's going on? What are you nervous about? What's keeping you up at night? How can I help you with this? How can we talk through this, right? And just to be a helpful resource to people. So what I would say to any of the listeners here today is make sure that your banking partner is someone that you like, know, trust, and you can get a hold of.
That's great advice.
That's great. Now, both of you guys too. I know you both have business mentors, coaches. Talk about yours first, Carl. Keith?
Yeah, so right now I'm being coached by Ken Clothier.
Ken. Okay, Ken.
Yeah, I'm doing, and I just upped I'm doing as a CEO coaching. And I've done
That's new, the CEO.
Yeah, the CEO coaching's new. I've been in his mastermind for the last year and a half. I've done like a one-day session with him, but I really I need that weekly accountability. And it all comes down to is he already has a property management company where they manage 11,000 properties. He's already done a lot of things that I want to do.
Is he in the real estate space?
Yes, he's in the real estate space, cool. And he's a big, he's on every stage, everything like that. So he's got real estate funds, everything that I'm planning on doing or want to scale and do, he's already done. So I decided to hire him because what I look for in a coach is, can you cut down my learning curve?
Absolutely.
100%, right?
Yeah.
Have you done it? There's too many people out there on social media who are selling coaching who hasn't done it. It would be like Kyle selling fasting programs and he eats 3 times a day. So there's a lot of that out there. So just the introductions I've gotten through that mastermind has opened up a lot of doors. And right in business, you hit different challenges. a lot of our challenges now is not so much deal flow, but the leverage of money, the velocity of money, getting your financing, having that all squared away is a challenge when you're buying 3 or 4 properties a month. So just being around those type of people and those coaches, and I always say too, is the coach I hire now is different than the coach I hired 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because you've hit different stages, and you're not going to stay, if you want to play in the NFL, you're not going to stay with your high school football coach forever. You're going to progress through, and there's different coaches for different stages. So for me, I'm always trying to just surround myself with those people who can help get to where I want to go. And I'm sure you guys are like this. I'm always like, well, if I could just get to this level, I'll be happy. And then you get to that level, and I go, well, no, if I could just get to this level, I'll be happy. And because I remember if you told me 10 years ago, okay, your net worth and everything's going to be where you are today, I'd be like, oh, probably ecstatic. I'm going to play golf. But now I'm like, well, I could get to this level, and so on. And I think at some point too, it's not even about the money. It's about just enjoying it and just the accomplishment and being able to see things through, because after a while, the money is just a number in the bank that you wire back and forth. It's the accomplishments building, it's the impacting of lives. So the coaching part is important to me, and what I get to learn from that coaching is then I get to coach our leadership team and our employees in our company with that trickle down effect. And it's funny because I get people who ask me, hey, can you coach me? And don't know if I ever really want to be that type of coach and build, because it's another business. Yeah. And if I ever take money from somebody, I want to make sure I'm delivering on the expectations. I take that very serious. So for me, it's just been super impactful on my life. And I've had some good coaches, and I've had some pretty shitty coaches, but that's life.
Yeah.
How about you, Mike?
I'm just laughing when you said, I remember, and you guys will both laugh at this. I said, man, I'm going to get this job. I'm going to make $53,000 a year. I was like, man, I am going to be living it up, man. $53K a year, life is good, baby. And I'm like, oh my God, if I was making $53,000 a year right now.
Couldn't live in New Jersey.
I couldn't live in New Jersey, that's for darn sure. No, for me, I've hired a lot of different coaches. I said with Dr. Balicki, I've been really, really blessed to, I met a gentleman by the name of Charles Scott. He was chief of staff at Intel, ran Intel Capital, and a CEO that I'm very good friends with introduced me to him. And I took his 6-week, course, and then got asked to be part of his mastermind. So I've been part of it then. So I'm just with, again, it's just other great business leaders, and then we all just kind of lean on each other to grow. But I think the thing, as I would say, like Carl said it best, right? It shortens the learning curve when you have a coach. It gives you accountability, which is really super impactful. I mean, as part of the mastermind now, we kind of go through our checkpoints. It's like, hey, on a monthly basis, this is what I'm doing with this, and this. But another part of it is like, we might have someone, Carl, come in and say like, hey, I'm dealing with this HR issue right now. Like, I don't know. I'm just not an HR person. Like, I don't know how to handle, I got to fire this person. How do I handle this? And you're in a safe space where you have other people to do it. But what I would tell the listeners is, coaching, hiring a coach is the shortest path to gaining that mastery. But I would say be very careful, because there's a lot of fake experts out there.
Yeah.
A lot of shysters out there. And I think my tummy check when it comes to hiring coaches, seeing what their intentions are behind it, right? When I meet, someone like Kyle, and I've asked him and I've given him my advice on his business and stuff, it's like, well, what is your motivation for your coaching practice? And his answer didn't have to do with money at all. It had to do with impact and creating legacy. And that's more important to me. Like, I always joke around and I tell people, like, my executive coach that I have now, I tell people what like the investment that I make, and people are like, it's not like a crazy amount of money. And people are like, wow, I can't believe that. Most coaches, I thought it would cost this. And it's like, he's doing it to make impact. He's not doing it. He does it to get what he needs, but he doesn't need it. He's not doing it for the money. And I've worked with coaches in the past, and I've seen coaches out there, and it just kind of turns in my stomach where it's just like, hey, we can get people that are weaker than us to try to buy into this thing and pay an arm and a leg for something, and then they don't get a ton of value out of it.
I did a video this morning. I was looking back at my numbers. I spent about $75,000 this year on coaching and consulting.
Yeah.
And when I first saw that number, I was like, wow, I spent $75,000 on, it was a little bit of a shock. But when I really look at it, it's been a good coaching and a good program like that is really just an investment.
Yeah.
Because I know I've made a lot more than $75,000 back from doing it, but it's definitely could be sticker shock when you really look at the numbers between EOS and some of the other stuff that we're doing. Mike, you're really an impressive guy. I got to give you a lot of credit.
Thank you very much.
And I got this question, which I think I'm going to be asking everybody because to me it's like super important.
Please.
Do you think we walked on the moon?
Before I met Kyle Newell, I would have probably said yes.
I love that answer.
That's a good one.
I love that answer.
Sorry, that's just gonna be fair. I mean, the one thing that in meeting Kyle, which has been super refreshing, is you got to question things sometimes, right? You really got to question things, and I think I really got that even more so as I've kind of been in this fitness world for a while, where it's just like you look up how to lose weight and you get like 1,000 different things, and it's like, okay, let's like really start questioning what's out there, like our food pyramid and all these things that are out there. It's like, really, guys? Like, really? Is this really the way to get healthy? So I would say part of me, I'm leaning towards no.
Yeah.
That's
I'm 1,000% no.
I'm a no. I'm a no.
Okay.
Thanks to
Carl's a convert.
Yeah, thanks to Kyle Newell. But it's one question I think I'm gonna ask everybody when they're on the podcast
It's
now.
good.
Everyone likes answering that question.
Yeah. Can I ask you guys something though? Do you mind? I mean, I think it's like, hey, So what I would love to hear, and you got into this a little bit, but the one thing that I've asked Kyle, and the one thing that I ask business owners all the time is, let's think about 10 years from now. Let's think about 5 years from now. Like, I kind of know the answer with 5 years, but I think 10 years is a more meaningful number. So I'd love to hear where is Kyle Newell in 10 years, and I'd love to hear where Carl Sanfilippo is in 10 years.
You want to go first?
Kyle, I think
Well, 10 years, so if you look at the family, I'll have a 10-year-old, which is crazy, right? With the baby coming soon. Probably, before we get into the career stuff, I would imagine we'd probably still be here in New Jersey just because we have such good connections. We've toyed with the idea of moving, but it's hard to rebuild that, the family and friends that we have. Like, I got so many loyal friends. And then as far as the career path, really speaker and author, even being like fully invested into that at that point.
Somebody told you about that, man. Speaking, man. I don't
Yeah,
know.
man. And Devin always been telling me too. I spoke in Houston last week, and a couple of them, and it's funny. You get so caught up with the online stuff, where it's not that it's not real, but you still got to blend the old school marketing stuff and the boots on the ground and the, in your face type of stuff, and Ocon's, he got to see that past few weeks. You speak in front of people. It's like, it's funny because I used to be terrified, like in high school and middle school, speaking in front of people, like terrified. I actually dropped out of, it was at home ec, I think, our senior year, because we had to give a public talk, like public speech, and the teacher was pissed at me because she thought I was just didn't want to do. She didn't know I was just. I literally dropped out of the class because I was so fearful to speak in front of people. So I think I'll be coaching in some realm too. I always fantasize, but it's just not feasible to being a collegiate strength coach. Which was my buddy Jay is over at Rutgers, but it's just I don't think it'd be conducive to the family life. Yeah. Maybe volunteering and doing something like that, where if the staff leaves, it doesn't really impact me. Yes, I would like to. By that point, I would like to have over, if you just look at numerics, like over 1 million books, which should be definitely doable. 1 million books sold. Mm-hmm. Like people actually bought my book.
I was going to say, if you write 1 million books in the next
not 1 million books, but my plan.
I'll be thoroughly impressed.
The plan, already started is, so I got to put you on the newsletter list. I still send out the monthly newsletter, snail mail. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're on that either. Yeah. So now I said, okay, every quarter, Like this one coming up is geared at, it's a Rip Dad's book I wanted to write for a while. So each newsletter is a part of that book. At the end of the quarter, there's another book. You know, I'll make them about 20 pages each newsletter, buff them up a little bit, so then at least 4 books a year. Already done, because I'm already writing the newsletter. I was going to just leverage this, you know, write out the bullet points beforehand so I know exactly what I'm writing. The marketing's done beforehand, and then go. So kind of broad, but
That's great.
yeah, that's
great.
That's what I see right now.
Mike, I'm glad you asked. I know exactly what I want. No, I have pretty clear goals. In 5 years, I want to have 1,000 doors managed in our property management company. In 10 years, I want to have $100 million worth of real estate that we own and manage under our belt. To me, I'm so crystal clear on where I want to be with that. And I also want to be, at that point, either an adjunct or a full professor at like Monmouth University. And if Monmouth University listen to this, thanks for not responding to my email and ask about this. But I really want to, not for the money, I just want to be an adjunct. I want to be a professor in college. Monmouth's got like a real estate program, so I want to be able to give back and give real life experience of how real estate can change your life, not just textbook, not just teaching out of that, or to teach entrepreneurial studies. I went to a liberal arts college in Pennsylvania, Muhlenberg, and the best class I had there was entrepreneurial studies. I enjoyed it the most, go figure. So I really want to be able to teach, pass down, and everybody will pass in my class. Like I'm not doing this to try to fail kids or go on a power trip. I just really want to be able to give back at like at that type of level, because I just think so much in school that's being taught has no impact on your life outside of what they're teaching. But I knew my entrepreneurial studies class really impacted my life. So I want to be able to do that for other people. And I'm really big on teaching my kids. Growing up, my parents were in education. We didn't have a lot of excess money. Everything was save, save, save. Mm-hmm. And I just teach my kids it's not about saving, it's about investing. So I just want to continue down the journey with them of showing them what it's like to be an entrepreneur, showing what it's like to be in the real estate business, not so much as a realtor, but owning properties, being buying rentals, teaching them the velocity of money. Because I was like, if I could teach my kids that at 15 that I learned at 33, like they're going to be so far ahead of what I've done. You know, I want them to blow me out of the water. So so it's funny you say that, because I'm pretty crystal clear on where I want to be in the next 5 or 10 years. So a lot of decisions I make today are, does this fall in line with my vision?
Perfect.
And even with our staff in the property management, we share the vision, because you're either going to be on board or you're not going to be on board. And we're not scared to share that vision.
That's great. That's great.
So I'm looking forward to getting there, because it's not a matter of whether or not, it's just how quick we could get there, because I want to get there before 5 years.
Love it.
So what about you? I know you've had a lot of changes in your life in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
And I found out about your change by randomly calling you to see if you could do a commercial deal. And you're like, well, I'm not at the bank anymore. I was like, oh, it's great. So really small world.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 or 10 years on the path you're on now?
You know, I started the new job, you know, I'm very proud of myself, because it was one of those things where I was always afraid to take that leap of faith, right? Because I was insecure with myself. And I think insecurities for me always came from the way I looked physically, right? Which is something that really tortured me as a child, you know, and through adulthood. And then money was the other thing, right? Is, you know, my parents were also big, save, save, save. And, you know, they made a lot of sacrifices and then didn't get to enjoy the fruits of their labor. Like, I'll tell you a quick funny story. You guys remember when GoldenEye came out, you know, James Bond, you know, and he drove the blue Z3M. I remember going to the BMW dealership with my dad, and he looked at the car. And I go, Dad, you can get this car, get the car. He goes, nope, I got to wait till retirement. My dad died at 57, right? Very suddenly, he never got to enjoy the car. So as soon as I made some money, I bought a BMW. Just to make that clear real quick. I got to enjoy the BMW. But, you know, for me, what my vision is now for the future is I took the leap. I jumped into the deep end of the pool. You know, managing director at an investment bank, it's a 20-year career path that I left over because of my experience, because of my contacts, because of my network, because of the hard work that I put in. And I've learned the rules of the game, and now I'm really excelling at it. So my personal goal now is complete financial freedom in the next 10 years. And when I say financial freedom, it's that I can wake up and get out of bed and know that all my bills are paid, my family is financially secure, and that I can just play for the love of the game. Like, I just want to be able to play for the love of the game. And I think it's similar. Like, we all kind of have the same story. It's like we all want to grind really hard so that at the end of it we can give back. And for me, you know, my daughter Charlie is and my wife are just the two most important people in my life. And you know, we've talked a little bit about this now. It's like there's all these like fleeting moments, you know, that are just these magical moments of Christmas right now are just like, they're so fleeting because she's on the precipice of, like, you know, not believing in certain things and stuff like that. And it's like, I'm just trying to just embrace all these moments. So my goal is, you know, she's 5 years old now. 10 years from now, I'll be 53 years old. I'm still going to be jacked as fuck, you know what I'm saying, right? I want to be jacked. I want to be in really good shape. And I want to be able to be there when she's 15 years old and she's going through these challenges and she's trying to figure out what's next. I want to be able to be there for her and just be super present as possible. I'm never going to stop working, but I don't want to work for money. I want to work for the love of the game.
Awesome. I got a separate question for each of you. Talk a little bit more, because I think people won't, Michael touched on it, but the velocity of money. What exactly do you mean by that?
So I think when I learned how money moves on the bank system and how to replicate that in your own personal life is when things really changed for me in my investing business, in my real estate business, right? Because the bank is lending out money but collecting more and moving it around. So you have to keep money moving, or if it stays stagnant, it's stale. And I'm sure there's always people on social media like, oh, your money, if it's in the bank, it's literally losing money. So what I've learned over the years with the velocity of money is how to leverage money to buy real estate to get a bigger return. And I used to buy real estate where I would use all my cash to buy it, fix it up, resell it. But what I learned was I was limited on how many I can do. So while I'm thinking I'm saving money on not paying for leverage of money and paying interest rates, I'm actually losing other opportunities. So I'm actually losing money. So what I really learned was when I was able to leverage things like life insurance, margin in a bank, margin in a brokerage account, hard money lender, raising money, private lending, and using that money, we have bought a ton of properties where we bought undervalue. And we only buy value add properties. So when we buy a property, we fix it up. We borrow the money to fix it up and everything, and then we refinance it, pull money out. And a lot of these deals that we have, we literally have no money in a deal. We might have a couple $100,000 in equity. And our last podcast, we talked with Matt Pecora, who's the 203K specialist, even though he's not a loan officer. Even I've bought houses personally where I've done the improvements, and then once everything's kind of settled, we refinance and pull money back out, and we can rinse and repeat. So once you learn how to keep that money moving and how to create money, so I have deals where we have $200,000 of equity and I have maybe $2,000 into the deal, you're really creating money through the velocity of money and leveraging other people's. And then if you can rinse and repeat and do that 10 times, you now just created $2 million in equity with leveraging money. So once I really learned how to do that, and we've got it down pretty pat, where we're able to buy deals and then refinance them, take some cash out to go buy more properties, we just started creating more and more wealth. And I laugh because I even have one of my last condos here in Hillsborough. I paid back in 2000 100 grand for this house. I was able to, the day after I closed, refinance, pull that 100 back out, and I was making $600 a month rent income. and I had 100 grand of equity in the property. So people would ask me, what's your ROI, right? People love to challenge you, like, well, what's your ROI? I'm like, well, I don't know, because I have no money in a deal and I made $100,000, so my ROI is infinite, you know? So, because there's always people out there who haven't done things, who want to tell you how to do it. I was talking about it this morning. I flipped over 100 houses in my life. And it's always the person who's never flipped a house that tells me everything I'm doing wrong in my flip. And I said, I appreciate your advice, thank you, but you don't know what the hell you're talking about, right? You've never done it. Yeah. So just learning how to leverage that money through so many different resources like brokerage accounts and margin and whole life insurance or hard money lenders or that private lenders, it allows you to scale and really start scaling, building your equity. And I have that personality. The first time I did it and it worked, I was like, wow, how do I do this 10x? How do I do this 20 times? And that's how we've been able to build a pretty big rental portfolio. And we have a lot of equity and a lot of cash flow. We never buy houses just on cash flow, and we never buy houses just on an equity play. We always have to have those two factors. And like anything else in life or business, once you know sort of what your avatar is and what you're looking for in your business, then you could double down on going after that. So we know deals that we're going to personally do those, or that we're going to sell them off. So that was the biggest thing, and just being able to leverage that, because I look at it too as like, I'm my own insurance company. So what I mean by that is, God forbid somebody in my family gets sick and the insurance company doesn't want it, I'm going to cover it, right? And I'm going to be able to do that. So for me, the money is just a tool to be my own insurance company. I'm never going to be beholden to, I can't do this because it's not going to get covered. Well, it's getting covered in my house, whether I write the check or not, because there's more things more important than money. So that's kind of my attitude. And we started off with buying, and everyone wants to know, we started off with buying condos. And then once we got through condos, we bought houses. Then we bought 2 families. Then we bought 3 families. And then we've gotten to the point where we bought 10 units, strip malls. And everyone sees the strip malls, 10 units, and they want to say, how do you do that? You didn't see when we were buying the condos. We worked our way up. So I always say you can't compare your page 1 to somebody's page 100.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Absolutely.
And they say, well, and when the other thing is you got to take action. You can read every book in the world. You can listen to every podcast in the world, but if you don't do shit about it, it means nothing. Like, you got to take action. Until you get punched in the face and learn in real life, it's all, you can read every book you want. You can read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I read once a year. You can read it every day, but if you don't buy a property, it doesn't mean anything. Yeah. So it's really just that taking action part, learning the velocity of money. And this goes back to Mike's point too, about having your team and your bankers, and there's people you have to call and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Can I actually do this? And they'll be like, yeah, we could do that, or we could not. So it's just knowing that part, and knowing that, and looking at deals differently too, right? The tax implications of buying that deal. So someone might not think it's a good deal, but I might think it's a good deal because I know, hey, I could do this with that property, which you don't even know you can do, because we're just at a different level right now, which is fine. So even, dealing with Mike, I bought a property back in COVID for $600,000. It's worth over $1 million now. And we have my business in, and we got massive cost segregation tax savings from it. So basically, I look at it as I have no money into the deal. And once you learn how to get little of your own capital into a deal, and it creates massive equity for you, your net worth will then jump very quickly once you get this down. So learning that velocity of money really has changed my life.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's interesting though. You say, I think a lot more. It's funny, you ask the banker the question about the velocity of money, and then I hear what you're doing, and that's why I said to you, like, hey, I'd love to invest more into a fund, because it's one of those things where I don't have that expertise that you have. And I think a lot more about like the velocity of time. And my thing that I've really struggled with is, hey, let me get this side hustle, let me work on this side business, let me work on these different things. And it's just my time. My time is just so finite that I don't want to take away from those important things, like spending time with my family and being a dad and all that. So, when I think about the velocity of money and these different things that you're working on, I think about it more in what I'm doing now. And one of the powerful tools that we're working on now at my firm at DBD is, people that are getting approached by private equity now for, hey, we're going to buy you at 4 times EBITDA, right? And it's like, oh man, this is going to be great, $30 million, it's great. And then, these business owners start thinking about it, they go, okay, well, all you're going to do is you're going to give me 30 million. I'm going to have to pay the tax on it, because I live in New Jersey and that's going to suck, and all these different things, right? But all you're going to do is kind of roll me up and package me up with a bunch of other people, and then you're going to sell me again. And what we're doing now is we're teaching people how you can really buy multiple expansion by aggregating businesses on your own, right? And that's leveraging the private debt market, right? To go out there, leverage a cash flow of your existing business to go out, buy other performing businesses, bolt them on, integrate them, because you need to have a good integrator to have them there, and then be able to buy that multiple expansion. So instead of going to private equity and getting 4 times, you're getting 10 times because you've built that scale and you buy that multiple expansion. And the private debt market, and it's funny, you say, we say like hard money lenders, people, if you told people hard money lending, hey, it's 20% money, 14% money, 17% money, people are like, what? My mortgage is 3%, Yeah, how can you borrow money at that? But if you use money as a tool, debt's a lot cheaper than equity in your business, right? So being able to leverage that debt and knowing how to leverage debt to be able to get that expansion is huge. So that's what I think about when it comes to the velocity of money.
Right.
Carl, I got to ask you one question.
Go ahead.
What is your biggest fear in business?
I would say not doing what I know I could do, but it ties back to the imposter stuff, right? Like speaking in front of thousands of people, and I've become pretty good at writing, making sure that I'm putting out this work. A lot of times, for example, if using writing as an example, it's like forgetting that what I'm actually doing in that moment is what I've dreamt about. Instead of being like, well, gotta get this done so I can do this.
Right.
Like missing the ride almost, missing that. And then I think that ties into like the biggest fear in life I have would be not succeeding at the level that I could succeed at and letting my kids see that, right? Giving them that pattern, of, because that's what's going to happen. They're going to see whatever I do, most likely, especially the boys, and model that or live up to that, right? So like you said with your kid, you want them to surpass you.
Right.
I want to show them, hey, put your mind to it, you can do it. What about you?
Oh, my biggest fear in business is being stuck running and being in the middle of a business ever again in my life. 110%. I build businesses a lot different now than I did 10 years ago. We've been lucky we built some other verticals, and finding the right person to run the company. One thing I've learned in business, and I think it's big, being able to reflect and look in the mirrors, I should not be the person in the middle of the business running it. If I am, that's not a good sign. Right?
More of a visionary. Yeah.
That's not my strength. I should be working on the big relationships, the acquisitions, which I've done, selling companies, which we have. We sold a mortgage company. So really, that part is my biggest fear, is being stuck in running the day-to-day of a business again, is what really keeps me up at night. I don't worry about the economy. I don't worry about this. I know I have the gift of lead generation, and no matter what business I'm in. So as long as you can generate leads, you can generate revenue. But being stuck in the middle of running the day-to-day to a business is my nightmare, and will keep me up at night in cold sweats.
I believe it. I got one. When the demons come up and enter your head, right? You talked about fitness, and because I know it happens, because everybody's got that area with the body image issues. What do you do to quiet them or put them back in their place?
Well, I think the demons that I have now are more on the imposter syndrome stuff and less about the body now, right? Because I've mastered the body part of it, right? Like I've quieted those demons, and I know the practices that I have to do on a daily basis to keep those demons, quiet. But they still creep. Still creep in. I think for me, it's just it's my routines. That's really what it comes down to. I remember listening. We've all listened to different self-help and business coaching, Zig Ziglar, and all these guys. And there's always this one thing that always stuck with me, and it's one of these. They were talking about how it might have been Zig Ziglar. One of these guys was saying how somebody said to him, "Hey, well, your advice is great, but like it's just like I'm not doing so well anymore." And he goes, the Zig Ziglar or whoever it was asked, like, "Well, are you doing this still?" And he's like, "Well, no, I don't do that anymore." And he's like, "Well, are you doing this?" And he's like, "Well, no, I don't have time to do that." And he's like, "Well, are you doing this?" And he's like, "Well, no." And the guy said, "I stopped doing what I needed to do to be that place." So for me, it's like if I ever start falling into those traps, I kind of just, okay, let me look back on my day. Let me look back at my week. Let me look back at my month. Like, what was I doing? Like, was I doing the things that I needed to do on a daily basis that make me successful, right? One thing I shared with you that I started doing now is I do the cold plunge every morning. I do my 3 minutes in the cold plunge, and in my bathing suit, shirt off, bare feet, no matter how cold it is, snow on the ground, I put my feet on the ground and I look towards the east, I look towards the sun, and I say, how thankful I am for everything that I have, and I put out into the world what I want the world to come to me. And like, that's what I say, like, I'm gonna live a life of health, wealth, and happiness, for my family. And, that's what I'm gonna continue to do. Please let me continue to shine, my light upon the world, and let the light shine, upon me. And I start my morning every day like that. When I don't do that, it's when I start having a bad day.
Yeah.
Funny how that works out,
Yeah, I gotta give Kyle credit, man. He's the king of, he could get me to do shit and weird shit that I never thought I would do.
Yeah.
Like drinking baking soda,
Yeah.
the cold plunges, showers, and I'm like, this guy is, how did I get to my life right here at this moment? No, but I say that jokingly, but I also respect that about Kyle.
Yeah.
And how he could challenge, he challenges people, and I find him very inspiring.
Yeah,
even after knowing him all these time. I mean, we go so way back, but so I just love what you say too is, falling off your track, your routine really throws you off, because that's the same for me as well. Let me ask you, what book or books have made the most impact on you in your life?
Gosh, Eckhart Tolle, any of his stuff has been great. I just gave.
I finished it too.
Yeah.
Wait, who's this?
Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now and The New Earth, I think.
Yeah.
You guys got your own little inside thing going on. This when you say
I didn't know that. Yeah,
I don't know his book.
Yeah. The one that's been most meaningful for me lately, really good friend of mine, John Ziss, who I met through my executive mentor, program that I'm with. He has a startup EV charging company, but brilliant guy, super successful in business. I just, one day, this book just shows up, and I thought it was a book my wife got from Amazon, because we constantly have Amazon packages, right? So I was like, oh, she's reading a self-help kind of book. I was like, oh, this is cool, Melissa. Like, and she goes, no, this came for you. I just opened it. And my friend John sent it to me. It was this Florence Scovel Shinn. She was around in the early 1900s. But it's really about just, it's the book, The Game of Life and How to Play It. It's really about, manifesting, a more powerful life and following intuition. And, and if I didn't follow intuition, right, I would have never met Kyle, right? Because I saw this guy that I was intimidated to go up to, but I walked up to him, right, because I felt that intuition to do that, right? And now here we are in a podcast. I've been invited to his home. I would happily welcome him into my home, and have him sit and eat dinner with me now. And, so those have been some really powerful books for me. But I'm constantly out there searching. Just, I read a lot. I mean, there's too many books to list, but those are just two off the top of my head.
No, I love that. I got to check that out. So when you're not working out and not doing the business stuff, and what are you doing with your free time?
I don't have a lot of free time, but for me, I get in my work, which I would include my fitness routine and stuff. Outside of that, I'm just trying to I'm just spending time with my daughter. I mean, we do everything from, I love doing bedtime at night, bedtime and bath time. My daughter now, she's 5 years old and she's reading chapter books. That was like the big thing that happened this week. She's fully reading these books with chapters in it, which is amazing. So I just am fully immersed as a dad. We do dance parties almost every night. I mean, I'm just trying to be spend as much time with my daughter and my wife as possible. Funny, so we were talking today. Somebody was like saying like about movies and this and that. Like I don't really get much time. I don't do a lot of those things. I did mention I did play in a band, so I love music. I love live music. So I've now found it's kind of cool now through my business connections and stuff. You know, a good friend of mine, Kyle Newell, he owns Opal Energy, probably one of the greatest commercial solar companies in the country right now, growing, you know, hugely fast. Turns out he was a drummer, right? Like you never know who it's going to be. And he texted me the other day, he goes, guess where we're going? And I was like, where? Third row to a perfect circle and Primus at the Art Center in May, right? Like, so I like getting at the live music, seeing live music with my friends and stuff.
That's cool. And one thing I like to ask is, I feel like when you're an entrepreneur in business, everybody always talks about the highlights, right? Talk about a time, and I know you touched on a little bit, where you were going through something difficult and with business and how you overcame that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, for me, the biggest challenges that I've, you know, come across in business is, you know, being super complacent. You know, when I said like, hey, if I would just make, I think it was $40,000 a year, then it was $53,000 a year. Then I made 6 figures, and I was like, that's it, man. Like, that's all you need to do. And then you quickly realize that 6 figures is still not enough. You know, the one thing I think where I've had the most challenges is that complacency. And I said, okay, well, you know, like making, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, I mean, like, I feel like I finally made it. You have that security, but then you still want more, and I still want more, and I still want more. And the challenge that I had was really, you know, not having the guts, the balls, or cojones, whatever you want to call it, to take that, to just jump in the deep end of the pool and go with it. Because, you know, in the banking world especially, you know, people ask me, well, you're a great banker. Like, why would you leave commercial banking? You were crushing it. And it's because I kept hitting this financial ceiling, right? Yeah. I would hit all my goals. I would end up handing, you know, deals that I had to Kyle, and Kyle would hit his goals, and everybody's great. And then it's like, I'm like, well, what's next? And you know, that's where I've had the biggest challenges. And if I didn't have the guts to do more, you know, that's where I've had the biggest challenges. The other thing that I would say is I've been in the position where I've done a deal, and I questioned, should I have done that deal? And the one thing that I've taken, and I'm sure you would echo this as well, is I look at it now when I lend money or I give people money, I look at it like it's my own now. So every deal I look through the lens of, if I'm going to give Carl the money to buy X, would I buy that property too? And if I don't understand, like if I say initially no, I would say, oh, Carl, explain this to me.
Yeah, right.
Why are you doing this? And he might say, hey, we're looking to get something where I can have a loss because of a tax perspective or whatever it is. It's like, okay, that makes sense. But, you know, for me, I've had some nights where I've stayed up with a cold sweat where I was just like, was this the right, you know, did I do the right deal? And that's been a spot that I didn't want to be in.
I love that.
And then the other thing I was going to say, I had to answer this question. You said, what's your biggest fear in business? And I wanted to answer that question. I heard a great line the other day, and you guys can steal like an artist on this one, right? Your reputation is like your virginity. You only lose it once. And that's my biggest fear, right? We have collectively built such a great reputation in the business community. I don't want to ever lose my reputation and the great reputation that I have. So
I like that.
You like that one? I heard another good banker one. You want to hear a good banker one?
I'm sure there's a lot of good banker ones.
There's a good banker one. I heard this one, and you can use this one. Bankers love to give you an umbrella when the sun shines, but they take it away when it starts to rain.
Yeah.
I thought that was another really good one. Not this banker. But.
No, I like it. I've dealt with a lot of bankers in my life, so it's pretty good. Pretty good story.
Well, I know you got to leave by 2. Where can people follow you? Where do you? I know you're going to start posting more. You had said, right?
Yeah, I'm going to start posting more. I would say, I don't know. You can hit me up. I mean, the one thing that I would say is any business owners that are listening that are interested in exploring growth, Michael at dbdpartners.com. Just shoot me an email. Love to get on a call with anybody. Happy to be a helpful resource. And then...
What's your Instagram?
I don't have an Instagram, bro.
You got LinkedIn.
I'm on
We're
LinkedIn.
connected on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
That's a
LinkedIn.
good
You guys
spot.
can find me on LinkedIn. I post a lot of stuff professionally on LinkedIn. I'm trying to find, and I think I know a online marketing expert that I could. I'll talk to Kyle about this, but I'm trying to figure out how to blend my personal brand with my professional image. So I'm doing a lot of speaking now, doing a lot of different things like that. I have a podcast that I'm trying to get off the ground now, but working on that. And then the next big thing for me and my goal for 2025 is my book, The 5 Dimensions of Vitality. That's what I'm actively working on, and it will come out in 2025. So
I love that.
thank you guys.
And we'll have it in the notes, but where can people find you?
Still on social media. I'm about 172,000 followers behind Kyle, but I'm getting there. But at Carl Sanfilippo. And how about where can I get you?
Panda Man Official. We got Instagram, Facebook. We're going to be focusing a lot more on that, and YouTube.
We got a bunch of stuff that we're cooking up now that I think it'll be cool, to kind of tag onto the podcast. AssembleYourAllies.com. That's coming up soon.
Yeah, you got to buy that.
I already did, man.
Okay,
We're good to go. We're good to go, bro. We're ready for it. But yeah, it'd be good to get, we've been collaborating on it. It'd be great to have you get involved with it. It's just collaborating, getting more really good, smart business people together to do some physical challenges.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun.
It'll be awesome.
But thank you guys. It was a pleasure.
Good job, guys.